All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck, and I'm along with my coworker, Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic. Oh, my goodness, Jordan, what a day of motorsports. You are in Miami. You have done the Miami Grand Prix, where somebody not named Max Verstappen won. And then to top it all off, NASCAR has one of its all-time classic, the closest finish ever in NASCAR Cup Series history, to cap off a great race here at Kansas Speedway. So we are in two very different locations, but both, I think, probably safe to say, came away satisfied with what we got to watch at our respective tracks today. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, here in Miami, it was not only did Max Verstappen not win the race, he didn't have a mechanical failure. He didn't crash. He didn't have something, weird happen to him. He kind of, and I know there was a caution there that helped Lando Norris, but he got beat like kind of straight up by 8 seconds. That's unprecedented, really, at least in the last few years. So, but really, I think the important question though, Jeff, and I have it to you is, who did you think won the NASCAR race? Was it Buescher or was it Kyle Larson? I was watching it and I thought Chris won it, and then I saw the reaction of his crew and I was like, oh yeah, he won it. And then he didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was listening to Kyle Larson's radio, and so I guess to set the stage, I'm in the media center, and we obviously have the scoring monitor in the media center on a big screen. So, of course, you look at that right away, and 17 popped up on the transponder. I'd never seen the transponder be incorrect or not accurate until now, but we've also never seen this close to the finish, obviously, in NASCAR history till now. So I went off that, and then you hear I'm listening to Larson's team, and Cliff Daniels saying, and Larson's like, "Did we get it? Did we get it?" And Cliff is like, "No, sorry." And Larson was just like, good try. He was still pretty good with it. And then, I don't know, maybe it's hard to say, maybe 10 seconds pass. And then all of a sudden you hear screaming, we got it. And they're all going crazy. And you're like, what? And because I hadn't tuned over to NASCAR. Obviously, NASCAR quickly looked at the photo that they have, and we'll go into that in a second. And that was what determined the race winner. But poor Chris Buescher and his team certainly thought they had it for a little bit there, and we're celebrating, and it was all for naught. But I tell you what, when you see it in real time, and then you still see it on a replay, and you're like, I'm still not sure what just happened here or who won this. That's pretty awesome. I know you got to be at that Atlanta race earlier this year, and I was so jealous. Man, what an epic finish you got to see. I got one of my own here. So I was pretty pumped about that. And then just, the vibe afterwards, the crowd, just running out to pit road. I mean, the fans are just going nuts. They're just buzzing the grandstands. I mean, Larson's getting out of his car and people are just going crazy. It was a really cool moment there. And, I'll definitely remember this one for a long time. In general, it was a great race, but that was obviously the capper.
Yeah, I mean, it's an all-timer. I mean, it's going to be, this finish is going to be replayed for, I don't want to say forever, but probably forever. I mean, I don't know how you beat this. Like, I legit do not know how you get any closer than this, because you see the photo and it's 3 inches. I think they determined that the margin of victory. It's like, I don't know how you do it. And it's going to be interesting. And to me, it just further, even without this finish, but this is just the cherry on top of what was an awesome race, is that Kansas is by far and away, and I don't even think it's close, is NASCAR's best track. Like, it's not even close. There are other more historical tracks. There are bigger races that mean a lot more in the grand scheme of things, right? And significance and everything else. But in terms of pure racing for the last, what would you say, Jeff, 3 years since the next gen car, probably? Like, I don't even think it's close. Like, it's number 1 here, and then number 2, whatever that other track is way down here. It is that far. Kansas delivers everything you want. You've got strategy. You've got great side-by-side racing, different lines, tire wear. You have all of these things. It's a challenging track where drivers are having to push themselves. Everything about it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
You know, it's funny you say that because I came here this weekend and I'm like, Kansas has been really the last few years. And am I building it up too much in my mind? Like, is it really that good? You know?
Yes.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're like, Homestead, Charlotte, Darlington, these are all great tracks, right? And you're like, this is pretty good. And Kansas is really, really good. It's definitely up there, but is it really the best? I mean, you're in stage one immediately today, and you're just like, oh damn, oh, this place is awesome. And it really has. I mean, it's pretty remarkable how consistently great it's been. And Larson after the race, I asked Larson and Cliff Daniels why. I don't understand what about it exactly is this good. I mean, you hear Denny Hamlin talk about, lanes give them more options with this car, right? Like this car likes to have clean air and all that stuff. But Cliff said, he made some interesting points that it's more than just even like the progressive banking and stuff. It's like the changes that they make. This track is very, very sensitive to a variety of changes. And the way the track changes throughout the course of the race itself, it's very hard to sort of like nail this track. And so teams are constantly sort of chasing it throughout. And so that makes for a lot of, different people coming and going. And it makes for the ability to pass, it has tire wear. So you could use up your stuff early in a run and have to pay for it later, right? Or you could save your stuff and like a Truex and come on strong. And it just all the things that you are wanting out of a NASCAR race or just a motorsports race in general, this sort of provides for it, right? It's sort of like that purity it was their words, that Cliff said he and Larson talk about a lot, like the purity of racing. This is it, right? Like this is sort of the classic NASCAR racing, and it's great. It's so refreshing, especially like, look, man, I mean, we just came off a period of these short tracks and Dover, and we're just coming on here and just bitching. Oh man, this sucks. It's like, the dirty air and aero and track position, blah, blah. And you're just like, it's exhausting to just be like, man, this isn't working here. And what can they do to fix it and make it better? And then to have this race follow that up and kick off this great stretch.
Yeah.
Darlington's coming up and Charlotte's coming up. You're just like, oh, thank goodness. Like, oh, wow, what a relief. Right. And, I mean, just all day, it was a really good race. And again, the finish is going to be what's remembered, but stage one itself, I mean, was maybe the best of the year. And just, man, just great stuff. I could rewatch this race easily and be entertained once again. So, it was one of those ones where I was in the press box and, time is dwindling down to where you have to go back down to the infield. So you're not going to miss the end of it because it takes 30 laps to get down or whatever. Right. And I'm like, I mean, I don't want to leave this. It's a good battle for the lead, but the whole thing has been a good battle for the lead. So I hate to step away and miss a chunk of this, but, it was just super entertaining, super just enjoyable. Bravo to everybody that nailed this, whether it's, NASCAR getting this. I mean, we take shots at this car, but man, this car is so freaking good on intermediates. And the driver's putting on a great show. It's just phenomenal stuff.
You mentioned the number two thing on my list. Number one was how great Kansas is, but then the number two thing was like I feel like we just got through this stretch, and I look at here at the schedule, and it went Austin, Richmond, Martinsville, Texas, Talladega, Dover. I didn't have an issue with Talladega. I know other people did, but so you just look at that stretch, and it did feel like it felt like we were just. Every single week, it was a referendum on this car. It doesn't do this. This is the problem. It's this. It's that. It's not this. Why not? Like, this is so cleansing. It is going to be so nice to have this and have this conversation and not talk about, oh my God, we need to change this and what is going on. It's going to be great to have a week of just rejoicing. I mean, it sounds silly, but that's what it's going to be. And then we're going to go to Darlington and probably going to be somewhat similar. I mean, I don't think it's, and for the next 2 weeks, it's going to be great. And then, you got North Wilkesboro in there, and that's a whole conversation, but it is what it is. But it's really nice just to be able to sit here and say, how cool was that? Like, that was a treat to watch. Like, I feel like we were like handed this like cool gift, and we got to unwrap it, and it was like, wow, this is even better than I thought it was.
Yeah. And as Larson pointed out, it's too bad that you can't race here in November in Kansas.
I was just gonna say that. Why can't? I mean, I know. I I'm looking at I kind of looked at peeked at the weather, like average like weather temps, and I'm like,
yeah.
Well, there are some nice days. I mean, it's in the mid 50s, low 60s, and you get that nice fall day. Like, oh, maybe.
That's pushing it, buddy.
I know. I know. You can't. But man, can we have like a midsummer Kansas race then?
I mean,
like,
what's great about it too is like that would actually be, the early narrative with this car. Remember the first year was like how great this worked. And even really with, I think dating back to the 550 package as well. With the cool gripped up track, right? Like the 1.5 miles when they were gripped up and it was a little bit chillier. And today was a really chilly day here. I mean, it's been chilly all weekend, honestly. I know in Miami, it's hard for you to even fathom that right now.
But it was mid-80s all week here.
I was so cold all week, and I didn't bring like a jacket because it said it was.
Did you not look at the forecast?
Well, it said it was going to be 62, high of 62 yesterday, and high of 70 today. So I had a sweatshirt that I ended up wearing. I went back to my hotel during the rain delay and got my sweatshirt because it was so cold. But if you did have a championship race here, the track would definitely be cool and gripped up in November. Yeah. But, again, I get why it probably can't happen, but it just continues to be NASCAR's best product. And I think Parker Kligerman had a great tweet afterwards where he's like, imagine if, a driver is getting out of his car 10 years ago saying, we need more intermediates. We need more.
Oh my God. It's
tracks.
Well, no, and we're sitting here. We've talked about this. Like, we're sitting here and we're like, I don't want to say dreading short tracks, but it's like, it used to be like, oh my goodness, we're going to a short track. Awesome. This is going to be great. And now it's like, we're going to a short track. You know what this is going to mean. And we're going to have to, dissect what's going on with this car and all of this stuff. And it's like you said, exhausting is a really good word. It's exhausting to continue to talk about it. It's probably exhausting to continue to listen to it. It's not good for the sport. I mean, the facts are the facts, but it's incredible that now we like applaud intermediates because hell, like 5 years ago, we were looking at the schedule going, man, we got way too many intermediate tracks, way too many. We need to get rid of, Michigan losing a date. That's awesome. Chicago's gone. Awesome. Kentucky gone. Fantastic. Now we're looking at, Texas has got 2. They're down to 1. Now we're looking at this going, how do we get some of these back? What?
I know.
I mean, forget more short tracks, more cookie cutters, please.
I know, dude. What's crazy is like, I mean, here's the good thing. Here's the really good thing. I'm hesitant to say, that they, every time you seem to chase a track with this car, it seems to burn you. But intermediates have now consistently been great. Chicagoland still exists, right? Kentucky still exists. And you could add like if Texas got good again, I mean, you could add a date back there, essentially. Yeah. I mean, now, unfortunately, Atlanta's good in its own right.
Fine.
Super Speedway, but it's not, the traditional mile and a half anymore. No, now you could take the Roval and make that the Oval. Yeah, okay, so there is I guess what I'm saying is there is a pathway where you
Chicago's still kicking.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, at least it's not if they say, you know what, this is just too good to pass up. We've got to go to more of these tracks. I mean, first of all, is anybody really going to argue at this point and say, no, don't do that? Like, I mean, that's such a great show. So I think there'd be a lot of support for it. And you don't have to do it all at once, but you could at least start with like the Roval to the Oval at Charlotte. You could reopen Chicago. I don't know about Kentucky. Yeah, give it a try. Who cares? I mean, I'm pretty much open for anything at this point involving intermediate tracks because like you just laid out, it's so refreshing to talk about how enjoyable this was compared to some of these other tracks. So why not go to the places that are really damn good right now?
Yeah.
And this
I'm
was
I'm on the bandwagon. We need a midsummer Kansas race.
So you're saying you need 3?
Yeah, 3. Give me 3.
Oh, 3 Kansas races.
Give me 3
Okay.
Kansas races.
Okay. I didn't know that's where you're going with that. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot. Well, I mean, even though you say that, I actually
Why
would
not?
be like, I'd be like, I'd look forward to the next
If
one.
this
Sure.
is an entertainment sport and the idea is to give your fans the best product possible and showcase your sport in the best light possible, well, there you go. This is it.
Yeah, this is where, like, you know how for so long they tried to make the oval work for Charlotte for the All-Star race, and you'd be like, you know, you had a couple good ones in there, but for the most part, it was like, they tried this different format, they tried this, it didn't really work. Like this track,
yeah,
for like an all-star race, that would be badass, right? Like, because people would be freaking going for it on these short runs, the restarts crazy. Anyway, I'm getting way too carried away, but yes, we love Kansas. We can talk about the finish now. Don't you think we should talk about the finish?
Yes. Well, we kind of did already a little bit, but yeah, let's talk about some more.
Well, it's controversial though.
What is it? Oh, you're gonna talk about the line painting thing?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, people
All
are
right. No, please educate. You're there. Educate me, please.
Well, I mean, obviously, so there's a couple different things at play here that I have learned since the end of the race, and I would like to share with all of you, if you don't mind.
Investigative journalism at its finest. Here we go.
I mean, I wouldn't say that, but
I was trying to.
Yeah. I educated myself, and so now I can speak with some knowledge on this topic. So, as many people pointed out, I mean, didn't take very long for X to be all over this, that the start finish line here is not all in one line. It is crooked. It is not just straight down the middle, right? Because it has been painted in some areas, repainted in other areas, and it's just sort of, I don't know. It's mostly straight, but it's kind of like a little bit of a wave, right? Well, in talking to so that matters because when you have a finish this close, you look at Buescher's car and you're like, well, wait a minute, Buescher, it looked like he had a little bit further to go than Larson did, and the angle that TV is showing us, wait a minute, like if the line was straight, could Buescher's car have been there? I mean, it's pretty close. It's almost a tie. Well, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. So how it actually works is, I mean, I guess maybe the best comparison is the Kentucky Derby, which you all have seen on the highlights. There's no painted start finish line on the dirt of the Kentucky Derby, right? But they still have a photo that lays the line across with the laser kind of thing, right? It establishes its own finish line where they have determined it to be before the race, right? And it's the same thing here. There's these high-speed cameras, obviously, you know about those, that are on pit road looking across at the track. And they use that. They set it up before the weekend and they say, okay, here it is. It shoots the line out, and that is the official line. Now, it is basically lined up with where the start-finish line is, where the edge of it is, right? But the fact that the start-finish line itself is wavy, it doesn't matter. Essentially, that the whole start-finish line that people have written on and repainted and people have done burnouts over, all that stuff, it could not even be there. It could be black, you know, just asphalt, and the thing would still be the start-finish line, right? Like where they say, okay, this is where the flag stand is, whatever. It's what matters is the laser of this, the line, and that is what determined that Larson got there first, not the photo of, not, it's not they're looking at the photo going, I think Larson's car is right there. That's right. Oh, let's zoom in here. No, the camera that has the laser determines that. Now, second part of this, and this is a big thing I think to talk about. Obviously we touched on earlier, the transponder lights up, Buescher wins 0.001 second, closest finish in NASCAR history, right? And then NASCAR comes and says, no, he did not win, because the photo showed this. And you're like, well, wait a minute now. That's not good. If the transponder is wrong, what's going on here, right? Well, when I went out there and got myself educated, thanks to, by the way, to NASCAR for taking the time to do this, I see where the scoring loop is. So the scoring loop is not at the actual start finish line. It's about, I don't know, I wish I had done a measurement, but maybe 3 feet behind. Because remember, the transponders are on the back of the car for what it's worth, or toward the back of the car. So the scoring loop is like a little bit of a section like this, about this wide. And the car passes over that and it triggers it, right? But again, it's a little bit before the start finish line. Normally, that doesn't matter, because if you're just on lap 30 or whatever, you could determine if you wanted to see who the lap leader was that lap. But for the most part, it's not going to be that much of a photo finish that you need to go, oh, who, lap 32 here, this car was in front of this car. We need to use the photo. But if there's any sort of a close finish or dispute at all, they're always going to the camera at the end of the stages, at the end of the race, obviously. It's because, again, the transponder that got triggered and said Buescher's car was ahead, that may have changed in that small little fraction of an area, but that is not the official. That's not how they're determining it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
It does. Yes.
Okay. Are you sure?
It does. Yeah.
Okay.
I've maybe I'm naive, but I really firmly believe like NASCAR is a really good grasp on these things. Like, I don't believe, no offense to the folks on X, and we had this conversation. Oh, I don't know. We've had this conversation before about start finish line. I know we talked about it at Atlanta and a few other times, but I really firmly believe like NASCAR knows what they're doing in these things, and there's never really a moment of like, oh, are you really sure about this one? This one looks weird. It's like they've got this down to a science. They really, truly do.
As another note, I was also told that that technology that I'm talking about that that beams the finish line across and that the camera is shooting at that high rate is the exact same technology that was used in the Kentucky Derby. So,
how about that?
Is the same. I don't know if it's the exact same company or the same technology. I wasn't clear on that, but apparently what you saw with the Kentucky Derby with that line there where you see the horses' noses is the same thing that they used for the cars. So.
Can we just Kyle Larson's tweet, by the way, where he talked about compared the finish today to the Kentucky Derby? That's an all-time tweet. Like, it's almost one of those tweets you're like, did someone give that to you? Like, that is so good. It was spot on.
I mean, don't you think that's Jared from Denny Hamlin's podcast Action's Detrimental? Don't you think he?
So you're telling me Kyle Larson really didn't tweet that? Now you're ruining the whole illusion. Oh my goodness.
Do you think Denny always does those funny tweets? You don't think that's Jared?
You're telling me it's fake?
It's not fake, but I mean, they have social media.
It's not the person. Oh man.
I'm sorry.
Oh, next thing you know, you tell me Santa Claus is not real.
I'm sorry. I thought you knew that those were not all the.
I know they have social media people. You never know
that
how.
Was Jared. I mean, I could be wrong.
Well, they need to have like a little identify. I want to get okay. Whoever came up with a tweet, it's on Kyle Larson's account. Yeah, you deserve the credit. So there you go.
Okay. Well, if it wasn't Jared and it was somebody else, we apologize.
Yeah,
if it was Kyle,
my original thing was Kyle is not creative enough to do it himself. So that's, I guess, perhaps go back to that.
Well, I mean, I think he was a little bit busy is the thing more than anything, right? Like he was in victory lane, and you think he's getting his phone out and taking the pictures and saying, "Hold my beer, Kentucky Derby."
Can I run your social media account for like 24 hours?
Do I have to pay you?
No, I'll do it for free. It'd just be fun.
Maybe you should pay me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh God, I know what we're gonna do.
That's it, isn't it?
That's you're not gonna look at my DMs or anything, are you?
We could make that part of the bet, but we could.
No, you can't go through my DMs.
We could do a social media takeover on Daytona 500 race day. I don't know if the whole day. I don't want to give you my whole.
We'll figure out the fine. We'll figure out.
We could say leading up to the race until the green flag of Daytona 500 race day, the loser gets their social media account taken over by the other person. The winner gets to take over the loser's social media account.
We're on the right path. I don't know for work purposes if that's the best idea to do it on a Daytona 500 day.
When are you going to do it?
I don't know. Some
random Wednesday.
I don't know. Well, we can have this conversation, but like, I think we're on the right path. I just don't know if we do it on,
You're
that day.
scared. You scared. You better get your
No, I
strong.
don't. I mean, as long as you promise not to go through my DMs, because God knows what you'll find.
Wow,
Like,
this is alarming.
this is we're good.
Okay. Are you
But
talking
I don't.
trash about me in the DMs?
No, no, not trash. No, 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 no. I would never talk trash. I
Okay.
don't talk trash about you. Period. All I do is praise you.
Okay. Something else in the DMs. Okay.
Yeah, I just don't know if doing that in Daytona 500 day is a good idea though. But yeah, we'll figure it out.
Wow, this took a turn. I feel some discomfort coming all the way over from my.
There's no discomfort. I'm fine with it. We could just we're gonna put together some fine print. We're gonna go over some things. I'm gonna have a lawyer look at this.
You guys tweet us some suggestions that we could. I mean, we could have stumbled onto something here. And you started it. You said, "Can I take over?"
Again, I don't. I'm not opposed to the idea. We just have to fine tune it a little bit. I don't know.
Drivers let their social media people take over the account. Do you think that they look at the DMs?
I don't know. We'll be going through and doing a big scrubbing. Let's just say.
All right. Well, anyway, we have all year to talk about this.
Yeah, this has got potential. We're not. I don't. Yeah. Anyway, so great tweet. It was a chasm level tweet. So Jared or whoever did it, congratulations.
Okay. Well, listen. Speaking of Denny Hamlin, as long as we touched on this topic, I do have some more information about this as well, about his role toward the end of the race.
All right.
So obviously before the Kyle Busch spin that brought out the late caution to trigger overtime, it looked like it was going to come down to, can Denny Hamlin save enough fuel? For a while there, it was Hamlin and Buescher, and they were both in the same fuel situation because they had pitted, very long time ago. They were gonna have to make it 70 whatever laps. But they got enough cautions because there was this outbreak of cautions toward the end of the race. Well, Larson was catching them, and all of a sudden he fell off, right? Well, it turns out, I don't know if you saw, I think it was Jamie Little that posted it at the end of the race. Larson's tire, I mean, it was corded bad. I mean, he was way too long on those tires, running way too hard. And so it wasn't that he had lost the handling or something. I mean, he was trying to just nurse it to the end with that tire. It was about to not end so well for him if he kept running hard on it. So it was really coming down to, could Denny save enough fuel? However, all of a sudden, right before the caution in those final couple laps there, Truex is coming out of nowhere. Truex is coming like a freaking missile, right? So Truex, I think, I wasn't at Truex after the race. I think I saw one of the reporters quote that said, I was going to get there.
He was, I thought.
I asked Denny about this, and it was clear to me that Denny had not been informed or did not have the knowledge at this point that at least that was my interpretation. Cause he was like, oh, Truex, like I could have kept pushing if I wanted to. I had more that I could have pushed. Because when I asked him, I said, did you think Truex was going to catch you and pass you? And it was sort of like, huh? So then I talked to Chris Gabehart, because I was like, well, what was the deal here? So first of all, I was saying to Gabehart, did Denny have enough fuel? Like, could he have made it? Because you could hear Gabehart coaching him up pretty good on the radio, right? Like, oh, we need more. It's going to be really close. So Chris said that basically he was about to tell Denny, hey, Truex is coming. You got to go. And because Truex was obviously going to try to run him out of fuel and push the issue, right? And Chris said, honestly, like in all likelihood, Denny probably would have run out, maybe between turn 4 and the start finish line, and would have had to coast across. If he had to push much more, Chris indicated that Denny would not have made it. So it may have been a Truex win. Gabehart also said, listen, the safe thing to do, I could have just said, listen, let him go. Let's get second place here. But he said, I have 4 win stickers over here on the car right now, 3 of those being points victories already. I want another one. And so we were just going to go for it, essentially. Right. So even though it looked like Denny was headed toward a potential win, that actually may have been a Truex win in the making. It sure looked like he was coming. So
it's on the broadcast. I mean, when I was watching it, he was coming hard, and he was being told, I was listening to it, it's like, you can go as hard as you want, put pressure on the 11, make them push more than need to. It looked like Truex was driving really hard, like he was making some moves from traffic, like he was, it was a kind of an atypical Truex kind of sometimes in traffic kind of, I don't say he's delicate, but he's like patient and kind of weeds his way through. Like this was a guy who was just on it, and he was cutting through people. I think he would have gotten there, but you don't know. But he certainly he had. What did you think of the call too, by the way, to take 4 tires?
Well, at first I'm like, why are they doing this? I mean, they think they restarted 11th, right?
Yeah.
They restarted 11th, but I mean, you look at it, he got all the way up to 4th,
and he got there quick.
He, I mean, you could say, well, he only got to 4th, and I think he was maybe 3rd going into that, but the top 4 cars were within an eighth tenth of a second. I mean, they were all right there. Elliott was right there as well. So, if things go a little bit differently at all, I mean, Truex might have been able to get there for sure.
Yeah,
so,
one caution too, by the way. One another overtime, and he's going to be really in a great spot.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I didn't like the call, but
yeah,
I mean, I don't think I'm not sure. Look, it wasn't the winning call, right? But from where he was going to be restarting, he probably wasn't going to be restarting P1 on 2 tires. So maybe you just try to do something there and see what happens. I mean, again, it almost did work. So
but I don't really. And you make a good point about, and Gabehart talked about this too, like they have the wins in their back pocket, the 11 team, so they can be aggressive and go for wins. And while Truex doesn't have a win this year, he's 155 points clear of the cutoff, and so like his margin is so big, and they haven't won, and they desperately want to win. It's almost like they had that win in their back pocket effectively, and it's like, we're gonna go, like, if we're gonna go for it here, because we're not really having anything to lose, whether we finish 10th or we finish 20th. It really doesn't make any difference to us, because we're still going to be in a great spot in the playoffs. We want to win a damn race because we haven't won in forever. And so, like, I get it from that perspective. And like you, I didn't think, I'm questioning it as it's happening, going, man, ooh, really? But then he was slicing through there, and won and I also thought the 17 and the 5 might wreck each other. They come into the finish line too. So interesting there. But it goes back to kind of our early discussion though. There's just, Kansas opens up the playbook though on what you can do. It's not a cut and dry. You've got to take 4 tires here, or it's not a track where you can take 0 tires. Like you have options. You really can do different things. That's the beauty of it.
Well, and I think you touched on something as well that we haven't even really talked about this year yet, which is you mentioned that Truex is way clear points wise, right? And it's very obvious at this point that this is not going to be the kind of season where you have 16 different winners in the regular season. I mean, it would be pretty shocking if that happened at this point. You're seeing continually the top Hendrick drivers and the top Gibbs drivers dominate these races. You still have a situation where every single non-super speedway has been won by Hendrick or Gibbs. And Hendrick has obviously won one of those as well. Now you could say, well, Buescher almost won this. Yes, almost. But still, I mean, it's the kind of year that, I mean, we're almost halfway through the regular season now. Next week is halfway through the regular season at Darlington. So, I mean, I think you can almost start to look at the point situation where you can say, well, I'm pretty good here. Like, Truex second in points, like, yeah, like as you said, I mean, you're pretty high up, and I'm not going to get bumped out by a bunch of different winners. So I think that's going to start trickling down as well for other people that are pretty high up that haven't won races. If that gets I mean, I think points racing, I guess, is going to start to be more of a viable option and a viable pathway in. So we'll have plenty of time to talk about that over the summer, but that's just something we haven't really even addressed yet. You know what I mean?
I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds, especially when you look at the guys on the cut line, that guys that we thought would be a Logano or a Bubba Wallace, even a Brad Keselowski, the guys that you would really kind of thought would be up there more. And instead, they're fighting for their playoff lives.
Well, another thing on the other side of this, right, is Chris Buescher. Man, the alternate narrative for this is so fascinating. He was strong the whole race, and that 5 wide move up the middle. I don't know if you got to see that.
Oh, I saw.
Yeah, that was. I was up in the press box and I almost jumped out of my seat. I mean, he just came rocketing up the middle. It was so badass. It was really, really cool to watch.
Could have gone so wrong too.
For sure. I mean, that in-car camera that NASCAR then pulled up on their socials and showed his view of that gap closing. I mean, it almost kind of reminded me of Keselowski trying to go through the middle and Gordon at that Texas race.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought too. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is just like 2014 again. That was exactly what I thought too.
Yeah, I mean that the gap is closing, but the gap is there, and he's going for it, right? So that was kind of cool. But he had speed the whole race, and then unfortunately, he gets his crew member over the wall too soon penalty. He has to go to the back, and you're like, dang, well, that's that. He's screwed, right? Like his day's over. And Hamlin was sort of in the same spot because he had lost 7 spots on pit road twice on 2 different stops. So it ended up working out that they were able to come to the front. But so in overtime, Buescher's leading at the white flag, and Larson is able to, get on the outside. And even at that point, you're like, I don't know if it's going to work. Is this going to stick? And, they come to the line and all that stuff. But if that goes even slightly differently, all of a sudden we're talking about different things. We're talking about Ford finally getting that first win. Poor Ford has lost the Atlanta photo finish with Blaney. And now 2 of the closest finishes in NASCAR history within a span of a couple months. Ford has come up sort of on the short end of both those.
Also Talladega too, by the way.
That's a
with
good point.
McDowell and Keselowski there. They were running 1-2 there.
Almost, yeah. So Ford is, it's like, oh, it's this many races since they've won in any of the national series this season. But also it's like they could have, they're so close and the narrative is switched, but Buescher, especially in particular, right? Like this has not been the season that we thought we were going to see from RFK. They haven't seemed quite as good. Now he's up to 11th in points now. He was 14th in points coming into today, but man, that really could have helped them and really set them on a different path for where they are in the year right now. If they get a win at a 1.5-mile track straight up, that's a big difference, right? In terms of like how you're feeling about things versus just like, we're 11th in points. You know what I'm saying?
It reminded me of Ryan Blaney last year at Charlotte because the narrative was much the same. Ford can't win in the intermediate racetracks. They can't come. They don't stack up well against Chevy and Toyota. They've got a lot of work to do. It's panic, pound the alarm, that kind of thing. Blaney wins there, and you're like, well, okay, there's maybe there's hope, right? And that's what it felt like today. It's like if Chris would have won, and it certainly doesn't answer all of the questions for Ford, and they still have more work to do. But it's like, okay, you know what? Like on a good day, if things go right for us, we have the speed. We can do this. And it's exactly what we talked about last week. It's kind of the blueprint that they've had the last 2 years. So it was encouraging for sure. You lead that many laps, and I think you led the 3rd most laps today. And you look at this and you say, okay, this is good. And Chris is a driver that is just so underrated. Like, I don't know. I'd be really hard pressed off the top of my head to name a more underrated driver in the garage. Like, you talk to people and people rave about him. And, whether it's a super speedway or a road course, like he can really win just about anywhere. And he's just very unassuming, and he just goes and does it. And the pattern with RFK the last 2 years, really since Brad's taken over, has been they have gotten much better in the second half of the season. Like last year, that was when really Chris started really heating up. Like he started winning those races. You go back the year before that, he got that win at Bristol, and Brad and he were both running much better as the year went on. And so you like, you look at this and you say, okay, they're going to be okay. But to have this now early, that's an upward trend that really is encouraging.
Other drivers to talk about right now. I mean, Chase Elliott has been quietly just reeling off the top 5s. Another 3rd.
He's back, man.
He's looking good at this point.
He's in that. I'm telling you, we had that conversation after Texas, but like, he's in the 4. Like, he's one of the 4 championship favorites right now. Like, I mean, maybe you could make the case for Truex over him, but he's got to win, and Truex doesn't.
On the other side of that,
Yep.
oddly, I mean, you know what I'm going to say, Byron?
Byron.
What's
It's
I don't
Byron.
understand.
Like,
No, are we talking about the same thing?
we're talking about Byron, right? Like, they're really good in practice and qualifying.
Yeah,
Or
where
really
were
good in
they?
practice.
What happened to them today? I mean, they were like a non-factor all day, and this is one of the tracks where you would be like, hey, Byron's gonna do really well here, and you know, we just never really heard from them. I mean, I don't know, it was just kind of weird. Like
I don't get it, because the speed that they had in practice was there, obviously, and then he hits the wall in qualifying, and you're like, okay, well, he's going to start in the back, but this isn't a track position race. Like, we saw it
yeah,
multiple
all these
times today.
people were coming up through the
Yeah,
field, right?
and we just talked about Chris. We just talked about Denny. You know, like, I mean, you could, I mean, hell, Truex did it in no time flat. I mean, you can pass cars here. This isn't a track position race. I don't know what happened. I don't know if he hit the wall, and is it a Truex thing like at Darlington last year, where he got into the wall and they didn't, thoroughly check it, and they end up having something broken. I don't know. He just did not have the speed today that, from what he had on Saturday morning when they unloaded to today, was very different.
Yeah, it was just really odd. I mean, I just kept expecting him to arrive on the scene at some point, and it just never happened. I mean, I guess you could sort of say that for the 2311 cars as well. This was supposed to be a race where they, had a lot of success. Obviously, Bubba had more bad luck, right? Like the incident that he got caught up in wasn't his doing, but and Reddick kind of got up there at some point. I mean, I think he got to about 5th or something.
Yeah, he was in that area.
He led 7 laps at one point, but I all right, the 2311 guys here, they've come to play today. They've got the cars,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, that was kind of odd, because you almost took it for granted that those guys would be top 5 type cars. But I mean, positive notes again, going back and forth here. Noah Gragson, another top 10. What's up with this guy? I mean, this guy is just he's just so good. I mean, I'm so impressed. I mean, you look at what is the half season he got at Legacy last year, and you're like, oh man, maybe he shouldn't have come up from Xfinity. This maybe spent more time there or something, and this is just too hard for him, or Cup's just a whole nother story or whatever. And I mean, he's gotten into the 10 car for an organization that is struggling overall. And I mean, he's definitely outrunning whatever Almirola was doing last year at this time, for sure. And just really posting consistently impressive results and leading that organization. So
yes,
I don't know where this came from, but just week after week, it seems like we're talking, oh, Gragson again. Just really good stuff from him.
He's not making mistakes. That's the big thing. Not putting himself in a hole. They're not having to come from behind. They have speed. They're executing. 5 top 10 finishes now in 12 races, up to 19th in points. And by the way, they got a points penalty earlier this year.
Yep.
Which is starting to loom really large, because at the time when they got hit with that penalty, you're like,
Oh, totally. You're like, that's not gonna matter.
Like, it ain't gonna matter. They're gonna be
right.
No,
they
were gonna have to win
like 28th and 26th.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna have to win. We're gonna have to win a race anyway to get in the playoffs. It ain't gonna matter. Well, I kind of want that one back. But they're really just doing it every week. And again, Drew Blickensdorfer, one of the more underrated and unheralded crew chiefs. Like, he has really done a good job throughout his career of always maximizing his resources and what they've had with that team, and wherever he's been, whether it's SHR, whether it's front row, even during the Roush days. Really good crew chief, for Noah too, because Drew is a veteran, holds him accountable, but does it in a way where he's not like overbearing sometimes, and kind of lets Noah be himself a little bit and fun. This is a really good situation for Noah, and he is certainly taking advantage of it.
Right now, a Penske car. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
It's just very impressive. So we'll see if he can keep it going. But right now he's definitely rolling. Michael McDowell, I have to note,
Oof.
had a very funny tweet after this because he finished 10th.
Yeah.
And Dirty Mo Doe, our friends, Steve Letarte, another Dirty Mo podcast, had basically been saying, I can't remember what the number was. I think it might have been 21, but he was basically being like, smash the over on McDowell's finish to be worse than 21st. Like this is like the lock almost kind of thing. And then after the race, McDowell quote tweeted the clip from Letarte saying that with the graphic that said finish 10th or whatever. And Letarte was a good sport about it and wrote back and said, hey, I love being proven wrong or whatever. But
see, I don't quite buy that because you go back to Texas on a mile-and-a-half racetrack and he was vying for the lead when he crashed. You know, I mean, I know that it's a very different tracks, but it's still a mile and a half. They've had speed. And so I don't know. I don't know if I would have taken that bet. I'm not arguing with Steve's wisdom because he's smarter about these things than I am. But I don't know. People
Dirty Mo Doe. They know what they're talking.
They know their stuff. I don't know. I think Michael's been a lot better this year than his result indicate. Started playing music random. Hey Jeff, you're back. Hello.
Hi everybody.
Hi. Okay, now I gotta pause you for a second here. The room I'm in at this hotel, the music just started playing, so I'll be right back for 1 second. I gotta turn off the music. Hang on. Oh, by the way, quickly, not my fault about technical issues. Yours again, not mine.
I would like to note that I had nothing to do with the track internet went out.
Hang on 1 second.
So I didn't do anything. I don't know where I froze for all you guys watching this or listening to this, but I really hope.
I turned off.
Did I have a weird face when I froze?
You were freezing a little bit, and I was like, it's a glitching.
Fear. Like I don't like when people freeze and they're like, ooh, in the middle of a sentence.
Well, you just literally froze and gave a weird face. So your worst nightmare. You just created your own worst. Yeah,
I did that on purpose. I froze like this. Ooh.
I might have to like screen capture that.
Okay.
But so not my fault though, but the technical thing. And you just froze again, by the way, a little bit.
The track internet. I mean, what
I know. I explained to our listeners that post race shows doing live streams at tracks can be a little dicey because of everybody filing stories and everything. So, can I just make a quick suggestion?
Did you hear where I was? Where was I talking about the bad beat that people had with Chris Buescher? Did you hear that part?
No, I did not. Can I just make a quick suggestion though, really quick?
Yes.
Just because your internet is starting going a little wonky here a little bit, well, why don't we do the good race poll really quick, and that way we have that done and over with, and that way if we do have some more technical issues, we can wrap up.
Okay, well, since I have to edit this, like in pick up where we left off in wherever sentence I was, can you just tell me where I was so I can?
Oh, I'm sorry. You thought I was listening?
Oh. Well, I was talking about Steve Letarte and Dirty Mo Doe. You heard that.
Yeah, and you were cutting out a little bit, and I just said that we were talking about McDowell, and I said he's been running better than people thought than he has been this year, and they've had speed, and that's kind of where we went sideways.
Okay. What I was going to say, I'd like to add to that I saw some people in my replies had some really bad beats because they sent me screenshots that they had Chris Buescher winning this race. With very long odds, and they were going to cash in big time. Yes.
Damn.
They were like,
what was he going off at?
I'd have to go back and find it.
Oh,
I'm not sure, but yeah, that's painful, huh? Yeah, I feel bad for you. If you had him, I'm sorry.
Wow. That's gotta suck because you saw on TV, you're like, they thought the 17 won. They showed the 17 pit crew celebrating on pit road. So you're like, oh yeah. Yeah. And oh man, that is a stomach. That is a bad beat. That is a definite. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Woo. All right. Brought up the good race poll. And so you won last week, unfortunately for me. So you get to go first this week, which is actually a really good thing for me because I don't want to go first on this one. I do not want to go first on this one.
What were the Kansas races last year?
Oh, come on. You're going to make me pull this up now.
Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask you every single week.
Right, I
so
have
why
it.
do you
I have it. I have
see?
it. Okay. Kansas
Great.
Spring last year, which was also that was Denny Larson plus Chastain fight.
Mm-hmm.
That was another good one. That was the #1 race of last year with a 93.3%. Then the Kansas Fall race was also pretty good. It was 86.4, the #6 race of last year. So, yes. And by the way, the two Kansas races in the first year of the next gen were 90.1 and 87.6. So, since the next gen arrived here, Kansas, there's not been a race under 86%. Has been the lowest. 86.4 are in the next gen era. So, what would you like to guess, sir?
I tend to go a little too high because I'm an optimistic person. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm a very rosy and sunshine and rainbows kind of person. And so I tend to go a little high on these things. It's bit me a few times this year. I'm going to probably regret this. I'm going to say 92.5.
What's your reasoning?
I think this was a fantastic race. Like, how are you going to pick apart this race and what was bad about it? And you really can't. You had an all-time finish. You had a winner. You didn't have you can't even look at the winner and say, oh, well, so-and-so won. People don't like him. Like, you had drama. You had good racing. You had long green flag runs. The guys could do things. What are you going to pick this apart? Well, like, how? Like, people are going to hate.
Why are you going so low then?
I just, because at Bristol, I'm hedging because I'm like
you got burned by Bristol because
I got Bristol. I got burned by Bristol.
#1 of all time.
Yeah.
And Bristol turned out to only be 87.3 because not everybody loved the tire.
Yeah, because people hate fun apparently. So
I don't think this is going to 90. I think it's going to be higher for sure, right?
I think it's got a chance. I mean, I really think it's got a really good chance. I'm just, I'm a scared little puppy over here.
Okay. Well, I mean, Atlanta this year got 94.8. I do have a chance to top it, honestly. So I'm going to give my sincere guess. Just go, I'm going to Price is Right you. And I could burn myself with this. I could absolutely burn myself by trying to be a good sport. But I will say 94.9, which is really optimistic and really high. But I just don't, like you said, I'm not seeing where somebody would go, nah, that's not a good race. Like, why? Why? I mean, what was that not a good race?
I don't know.
So
people, I tell you what,
I'm going to say 94.9, honestly.
If you are somebody who's listening to this and you're going to vote no, hit me up. I'm very curious, legitimately, why you would sincerely vote no for this race. I'm very curious.
All right. Well, the way that this technical difficulties have gone with the internet, we are going to wrap up the live portion of this for now. So those of you watching on YouTube, we will say goodbye to you. We will then continue with the F1 portion of this, try to cap off the podcast. So sorry to do this. Is just internet issues. But yes, if you want to listen to the rest of the podcast tomorrow morning when it comes out, we will then talk about Jordan's experience with the F1 race. So for now, friends, thank you for watching the YouTube stream, and we will talk to you next time on the Teardown. See you, everybody.